you need money, and like having more money allows you to do more of the quote unquote successful thing, right?
Yeah. Now there's a shortcut you can take.
What's that?
Which is
embezzling.
Which is embezzling up.
Butterscotch
shenanigans. Hey everybody, welcome to episode 119 of Coffee with Butterscotch, the game dev comedy podcast of Butterscotch Shenanigans. I'm Seth and I'm the games programmer.
I'm Sam and I wiggle nodes around sometimes.
And today we have a turbo special guest, Monique, our studio wrangler, is here on the podcast.
Woo!
As you can see, she's very enthused.
She also has a cold.
So please don't judge my voice.
So normally her voice is about 16 octaves deeper than
And
this.
so much smoother.
Yeah, very smooth.
Instead, it's cold butter.
Cold. All right. So let's get on to some news. Oh, yeah. Sorry. Before we get started, we do have a warning. Anything's going to happen on the show. There's going to be profanity and stuff. Also, today is October 9th, 2017. I got real derailed from this switching of the roster here. Anyways, so if you're a child, don't listen to this show. Let's get on to the news. First thing, we do have a question in the news, which everything's
flying off the rails.
Just scrambled today. The question is from Angry Muffin, terrible disaster. Andy and Cher have both been on the podcast a couple times, but we have not heard the smooth, buttery voices of Tifa and Monique. This needs to be fixed. All right, so we did that.
We did that. Done.
All right, Sam, you got a story from last night.
Okay, yeah. So
Let's hear it.
It was Diane and I's 1-year anniversary this weekend.
Ooh la la.
So we basically just ate a ton of food. I think that's how you celebrate, is by gaining weight.
That's how you celebrate every event. Right?
Love is measured in mass, so we accumulated more this weekend.
And you can always tell how important an event is by how sort of calorie rich the food is.
How it tends to be. So we went back and we visited the couple places that got food for our wedding and all that stuff. A lot of fun. And then last night, so the actual anniversary day was yesterday. Last night.
Happy anniversary, babe.
Thank you. Right before bed, Dinah's brushing her teeth, and I just walk up behind her and I was just rubbing her back. And then she puts her toothbrush down and washes her face. And then suddenly just snaps at the waist and just like hits me in the crotch super hard with her backside. And I was like, what just happened? And she sneezed. And so she so she sneezed in her back.
Like, is this some kind of new like marriage power move?
Yeah, I was like, what is this? So she sneezed and just punched me in the crotch. And it was completely brutal and out of nowhere in an act of love. So
happy anniversary.
Yeah, that's what it was. That's where my life is these days.
And did you recover?
It literally took like 3 to 5 minutes to recover. It was not a soft strike in a vulnerable zone. Just not enjoyable.
Then you just went to bed.
Then I went to bed. It was fine. Just sleep it off.
With an ice pack?
No, with a dog pack.
That's just a dog, right?
Yeah.
A dog the size of an ice pack. Also, we announced last week that we got the merch store up and running.
Guess whose fault that is?
Oh, thanks.
That was a Monique original. Was the merch store. So let's talk about that. How did it go?
Yeah.
Were there any surprises? Tell us spin us a yarn about running a merch store on the interweb.
It went well until those mug orders started coming in, which, thank you, by the way. I'm glad you all love the mugs so much. They're super heavy.
Yeah.
It turns out they weigh 63 pounds apiece.
The densest mugs on the planet.
And that's just the box they come in.
Yeah.
The mugs themselves are like an extra 100 pounds easily.
So
then the packaging peanuts.
So what happened exactly with this mug?
So why does this matter?
Why does it matter? Who cares?
Who cares?
Yeah, who cares
well,
about this
because
heaviness?
we're not Amazon, which means I can't just give you all free shipping for 2 days. And so what happens is you are all paying a premium price for premium products to get to your front doorstep. Yes. So it's a little expensive is what we noticed to ship mugs to all of our lovely buddy scotches. But I'm glad you like them, and I'm getting them out as fast as I can.
So wait, what exactly is what's the margin at which things become expensive for shipping?
So over 15.99 ounces.
So 1 pound.
Okay.
Or at 1 pound.
At
Greater
1
than
pound.
equal to 1 pound.
If it's 15.98, I can ship it for cheap. But as soon as it gets to 1 pound, it goes into zone shipping, which the U.S. is divided into 9 zones. If you're in zone 9, you're in the most expensive zone for shipping.
Where's
I don't actually know where Zone 9 is.
This is like a District 9 situation
Yeah.
where it's full of aliens. It's really hard to get
in the
packages
sky.
there.
Right.
Very
I do
hard.
know that Zone 7 is somewhere in Washington. That's the third highest shipping zone. So as things get
Washington
heavier.
State.
Washington State, yes, not Washington, D.C. The East Coast is actually a cheaper zone.
Wait,
Good
does
to
this? But how is this relative to where we're located? We're in the middle of the goddamn country.
We're in the
Yes,
middle.
it is also
Okay,
relative to where you're
good.
located, where it's going, and how much it weighs.
So again,
Those
if we were operating out of say San Francisco, this would have been just a disaster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shipping these things would have been crazy.
crazy. You probably could just drive them to some people.
Yeah.
Right.
And what we discovered with the mugs too is that the mugs weigh about 12 ounces,
12.7 ounces. by
12.7
themselves.
ounces, and then the box that the mug ships in is like just enough to get it above 16 ounces.
Well, because we have to, make sure it's safe.
Yeah, pack it.
Got to pack it. I mean, or I could ship broken mugs. I mean, that's fine too.
Hey, you
We
know,
could
it's-
probably just, if somebody orders a mug, we could probably just take the mug, go outside, sort of orient ourselves in the general direction of the recipient, and just hurl it as fast as we can.
We tried.
I mean, that's what the
We'll send
post
you-
office is going to
Well,
do.
I've had food before where they're like, "This is a deconstructed apple pie." I wonder if we could sell deconstructed mugs. So you just shatter it in the box and then just ship it.
Rustic.
any-
No,
We'll
we'll
make
just
it rustic.
call it a mug kit, and we'll just throw a little tube of crazy glue in.
Little craggle.
We'll
Put a
just
little craggle in there.
we'll take
Yeah.
the mug, we'll put it into a plastic bag, throw a little tube of crazy glue in there, tie it up, just throw it in the mailbox.
Yeah.
Punt it.
Yeah,
However it arrives, got to put it back together.
yeah.
We
But
can make a nice mosaic table.
But here's the crazy thing that I'm no shipping guru. I'm no shipmaster, shipster. It turns out that once you're over a pound, just all bets are off in terms of cost structure. So if you're under a pound, every little bit of extra weight is like, oh yeah, it's just a very small increase, right?
Of change, like actual, like 20 cents, 30
Yeah.
cents.
Then you get to a pound and like, fuck you, $10, boom.
That's
And
exactly what it is.
And then it goes back to normal where it's like every additional ounce, like, oh yeah, that's like 3 cents.
So what's happening?
As soon as it gets to that pound threshold, there's just a big spike. So we have these big bundles and stuff with there's like 2 mugs in them, and it costs barely more to ship that than it does to ship a single mug by itself.
Which means you should buy a mug, a couple shirts, maybe just buy like 4 or 5 mugs. Just get your money's worth of shipping because it's going to cost you $10 regardless.
Yeah.
Just get more stuff.
You're gonna
Save on
want to
shipping.
you're gonna want to get that ratio down,
Right.
of goods to shipping costs. So that's been pretty interesting. We got a pretty good number of orders. We're trying to keep it quiet. So
Keep it low.
we got enough
key.
that we were able to sort of set up a little merch packing area down in
Thanks,
our
Seth.
storage room. So things are coming along.
Well, I think there's another thing here, which is we've talked about the importance of framing when it comes to selling your products. And also we found out when it comes to picking what type of shipping to choose. So we were having this
yeah.
problem because we're just trying to, it looked like no matter what we did, that it was just going to be super expensive, even for stuff under a pound,
Like $20 or
like
something.
$20. And we're like, what? This is impossible. How is this a thing? And it's because, what's the language they use, Mo, when they talk about it?
Oh, so for the cheap shipping, it's actually called first class mail.
Okay.
First class. That's
First
the cheap
class.
one.
That's the cheap mail.
And then what's the next one?
Priority mail, which is the expensive mail, but it's flat rate, meaning you can shove everything into this box and it can weigh 30 pounds and
As
it'll
long
be
as
like,
fixing the box.
right. But it's like $12.95 or something like that, or
So
$13.50.
naturally, as people who aren't shipsters, we're looking at
Yeah.
this and we're like, I mean,
First class. You'd think that's the primo. That's the primo.
like, we
ship.
can't do first class because we're not quite first class.
Yeah, we're just mere merchants.
We're mere merchants here, and this is the problem with using that damn Orwellian language.
This is a tall venti grande situation.
Yes,
right. Like
right.
if you're gonna put things on a spectrum, then use the same unit for each point on the
yeah,
spectrum.
be
right?
like first class, low class, coach class, steerage.
Cargo hold.
cargo hold.
Yeah.
It'll get there in 6 months. It'll probably be broken at that point.
if
That's
it
what-
gets there, but you're gonna
Well,
save a lot of money.
Well,
on
it's the
that.
funny thing. So Mo actually did put together a few packages to do some test shipping on, and we sent one to your dad
Yes.
in Florida. What happened?
Well, I sent it to my father, and of course, the very first package we send goes to the wrong house. Thankfully, my dad talks to everybody he knows in his neighborhood, so the neighbor just drops it off. So it gets to the wrong house, the very first package. So thank you.
That wasn't on us. We put the right address on there.
It is my father's address. I hope I know where he lives.
Yep.
It just went somewhere else.
It went to the
This is why
wrong
we're being
house.
very quiet about the fact that the shop exists. People are like, hey, this isn't linked to on your site yet. We're like, we know. It's on purpose.
Yeah,
Don't worry about it.
We're hiding it.
Yeah, we were intentionally hiding it so I don't spend days in the merch shipping area covered in packages.
Yeah, but I think it seems to be going pretty smoothly, all things considered. And so, despite it, sometimes the packages just go to your neighbor. Just consider it a gift if you order something from our merch store and it goes to your neighbor's house. It's just you being a good neighbor. You know? So who knows? Maybe we'll get that link up
I
on the
feel
main
like
site.
if I opened up a box that had a shirt that said Butterscotch Shenanigans on it and didn't know anything, if it just appeared on my doorstep, I'd be like, what?
What is this?
Is this a prank? Like, who did this to me?
What's in this box?
I don't understand.
What's with this awesome mug?
Keeping this mug.
Like, this cost a fortune to ship here.
Yeah. Also, so we've recently opened up an email address, which is podcast@bscotch.net, where we invite people to send us just stuff, just whatever you want.
Thoughts.
Whatever you want to say, send us your thoughts. And we got a really cool message from Senolir, who last week we were talking about success and how people often become paralyzed by moving forward on learning a new skill or developing a new project or something because they focus so much on having good outcomes that the idea of not succeeding makes it so that it's much more preferable to just do nothing, right? And so we kind of talked about the idea that for most people, just getting started at a thing, success is kind of this arbitrarily defined thing, and all that really matters is that you just keep moving forward. So Senolir sent us a message basically saying, he said, here's a little excerpt. He said, those of us who spend our free time making games, but who must continue to work full time to support a family, if I could start making money from my game dev, I'd have a lot more time to spend on making games and would therefore be able to learn more and progress more at the same time. So for me, this isn't about an arbitrary value judgment. It's about the actual ability to spend as much time as possible on doing what I love instead of something else. So
Very good point, which is
It's a
something we
great
didn't
point.
talk about, which is there is at some point your success does give you the ability essentially to have more success in a particular domain.
Yes.
So we've talked about how a lot of independent studios, the whole goal is actually just to make enough money that you can make another game. And that's
your starting,
about as far as it
that's your
goes.
starting requirement
Right.
that you need.
And we refer to this as sandwich money in-house, which Monique is also keeps track of our sandwich money. And the whole goal is just to say that, okay, you know, every day, like that was our first goal that we had with our games was if we can buy ourselves a sandwich every day with the money from Towel Fight,
Then we're good now.
then we're good. 'Cause I'm eating a game sandwich.
Yeah.
You earned that
I
sandwich.
earned it. And then when we buy stuff now in the studio, it is really weird to think about because whenever we go to shops, I always think if we go to a sandwich shop, I'm like, this whole building is made of sandwiches, so far as I'm concerned. Like
Right.
it was created, or like a cookie shop. You're like, this thing exists by making cookies,
Yeah.
by virtue of selling these cookies. And so,
Cookies built this building.
right. And so whenever we go to the store and buy some coffee for the studio or something, I'm like, I'm buying this coffee with games.
You're basically trading that person a copy of Crashlands.
Right. For
Or a mug.
or a mug, right?
Or a
Which
mug.
is weird. So, but I think this is a really good point, and something we didn't actually get to this particular angle of it. We were mainly talking about sort of the mental approach to it.
Yeah,
but it
because-
is absolutely true that you do need success in a monetary sense, especially in order to continue building forward on something, and not necessarily just kind of spinning your wheels.
Yeah.
But it can be also the case that, and this is something we have talked about quite a bit, but you know, it was 3 years of not making any money in
Well,
like a
just-
reasonable capacity.
Just sort of sandwich and some eggs money. We got
Yeah.
some eggs money in there too, which was pretty nice.
Yeah.
These
which is
were
why I
low-key
think-
sandwiches, like peanut butter and jelly
Yeah,
sandwiches.
real low-key.
Now we're talking like
Homemade-
at least turkey on our sandwiches now.
We got some deli meat on there. It's nice. But yeah, so I think that's one of the big things is that the reason we don't necessarily talk about the monetary reality of it is that I still think it's the case that if you're overly focused on that, and this is not what he's talking about, of course, but if you're overly focused on the particular monetary outcomes, then you're by necessity, like it's just harder to hit that point of quote unquote monetary success in a reasonable time frame. because it actually just does take a
Well,
long time.
it takes a lot of not doing that.
Correct.
You make a lot of games and they don't make money for a long time, and you have to keep going, right? And so if you're coming into it just saying like, "Yep, this is my bar," like the whole point of me making games is to make a living. It's more likely that you're going to give up early because you're not going to hit that threshold for a long time, right? So,
but it is absolutely the case, and we did appreciate the getting the note about it, sort of pointing out the sort of financial reality on the other side, which is just you need money, and like having more money allows you to do more of the quote unquote successful thing, right?
Yeah. Now there's a shortcut you can take.
What's that?
Which is
embezzling.
Obviously.
Or isn't it just be a billionaire?
Yeah, being a millionaire.
That's a shortcut to prison. So there is something you can do, which is try to find ways to learn on someone else's dime. Right.
Yeah.
So in other words, like trying to find contract work to do for other independent game studios where you can like build a part of their game or whatever. Or even finding a game job, even at a studio you may not even be that interested in working in, but where now you get to spend all day playing with the tools, and you're definitely not going to make as much money. So there is kind of like you got to figure out where your threshold is, right? But yeah, one thing that you can do is just try to find those patrons basically. And
there's a really good talk by Jesse Shell that should be in the GDC vault, I think, or maybe even just on YouTube, which is about the funding of a studio. And in his case, their studio is 100 people now, and like I think about a third of their studio works on original works, and a lot of them doing some VR stuff, and then a big chunk of the studio actually does client work. And he said in his talk, he's like, I don't get why people don't like the idea of client work. He's like, literally, someone pays you, they pay you money to play with and figure out like weird and interesting problems, which then if you sort of build it into the budget effectively enough and run your studio effectively enough, you can then pivot into whatever the hell you want to do, right? So someone else is paying you to learn, which is a big piece of it.
And all your people are still in-house, and they're still getting expertise in all these different tools and all these ways of making games. And you hit those milestones and you're good, right? So those contract or work for hire studios are actually a pretty good spot to sort of get started on these kinds of things. All right. So before we get on to questions, there's one more thing I want to talk about, which is satisficing.
I was reading that before I walked in here.
Yeah. So I started reading this book called The Paradox of Choice.
It's an oldie.
It's an oldie, and it's hilariously dated because I think the impetus for this author to write this book was like 2003, I think, that he wrote it. And he was like, oh my God, like this technology everywhere is just,
there's so much stuff.
There's so much abundance of choice. And he was talking about like, oh my God, there's 200 cable channels, and now like with VCRs, you can record shit and watch it anytime you want. So you're not even constrained by time
temporal
anymore,
reality.
What is time?
Doesn't matter anymore.
And so I was reading this and I was like, but the slant that the author's kind of taking is just the idea that we, especially in the United States, we have this idea of freedom of choice being sort of like the thing that defines our culture. Right?
Freedom is essentially equivalent to choice, right? You're like, the more choices I have, the more free I am.
Right. But there's a dark side of choice, which is that making decisions is expensive.
It sucks.
And the more things you have to choose between, the more time you have to think about all your different options. So the example that he uses early in the book is he doesn't buy jeans very often. And he used to just go into a store and just say, I need jeans. And then they'd be like, here's jeans. And then he'd be like, thank you for jeans. I'll be back in 10 years. Right. And so he hadn't been to, the Gap or whatever was hip in 2003 in a long time. And he goes in there and he's like, I need jeans. And they were like, do you want boot cut, relaxed cut, slim fit?
That's definitely 2003.
Yeah. They're like, we got 83 types of jeans now. And so he's like, well, I just want regular jeans. And they're like, there's literally no such thing as regular jeans anymore. Now you got to pick your fit. So he spent the afternoon trying on different pairs of jeans to figure out which ones were the closest to regular jeans, what he was used to. And so now he had all these decisions he had to make and evaluations he had to do where this used to be a 5-minute operation and now it was an entire afternoon of trying on jeans, right? So, and the same, I've seen, we've kind of talked about this in the past of things like, so I unsubscribed from Netflix quite a while back because I would go on there being like, I'm going to watch a movie. And then I'd be looking through the list.
Just scroll.
And I'd be like, oh my God, there's so many movies. and I don't
How do I
want to
choose?
I don't want to start one because like, what if there's a better one out there, And then I would have missed it. So then I would just scroll through the list for like 2 hours and then I just go to bed.
Would you have missed it? You could have just watched it like next or tomorrow or the next day.
Yeah, but I need to watch a good movie now. I don't want to watch a bad movie now and a good movie later.
Yeah.
So this kind of comes down to the idea of satisficing. So whenever people are confronted with choices, especially a large number of choices, there's basically 2 approaches that people tend to take. So one of them is called maximizing, which is you come into this trying to find the best option, which is this Netflix behavior that I'm talking about.
Or the jeans thing where you're like, I'm not only going to find the best fitting pair, I'm going to get the best deal on that fitting pair.
I got to find a good deal and I'm going to maybe check a couple different shops, and try to find like the best jeans.
I think he just went to the wrong store though, because Levi's actually makes one pair that's been the exact same pair forever. My dad actually wears them.
I think his problem was going to the Gap.
He went to the Gap.
They say fall into the Gap because it's a black hole and you can't escape.
I'm so tired.
So many jeans.
They're like, just one more pair. So this maximizing behavior, people exhibit this everybody has a tendency to do this, but in different contexts. And so one thing I know is like my wife does this about dinner, right? So she comes home and it's like, what should we do for dinner? And then there's this sort of, I can see there's this like internal struggle because she doesn't want to pick a thing because if she picks one type of food and then while it's on its way or something, if she's like, wait a minute, now I'm craving this other thing, now she's committed and she's trapped.
Or maybe you get it and it's like kind of cold.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, damn.
Yeah.
Or it's bland.
Yeah. Because it's not,
the
because it's not just like what kind of food. It's also, should you go get it? Should you have it sent over? Should you cook at home? And then all these things have all these different costs and you want to have the best dining experience possible. And once you pick one, the endless possibilities of what could have been they're gone now. Right. So there's this kind of choice paralysis. So that's kind of what maximizing is. And then there's something on the flip side, which is called satisficing, which is literally the good enough principle.
Right. But in psychology terms.
In psychology. Yeah. I think it's the combination of the words suffice and satisfactory. So satisficing is where you come in with a certain criteria, whatever your threshold is.
Pants. That's what I need.
I need
to
pants.
cover my bottom half.
I need pants. That's it. That's my checkbox. So you go into a store, you gaze around, and the moment you see pants, you're like, pants. That's my pants now.
Good to go.
You grab those pants. You probably, just to be safe, will look at the size.
Hopefully. And maybe length, depending.
Maybe, yeah.
Yep.
On the type of pants.
Yep. And then you leave. Or I guess you buy them. You pay for them.
Please
and you
buy
leave,
the pants.
right?
Do not steal the pants.
And so I've done this in the past where like I needed an electric drill. And so I went to the hardware store. I walked in. I looked slightly to my left and I saw a drill. I went over and I grabbed it. I saw that it said that it was electric, and I bought it and I left. Right?
Done.
I didn't like look up reviews. I didn't ask the attendant. I wasn't like, is this the best drill? What kind of torque does this have?
What's the long term? What's the lifetime of this engine?
What's your warranty with this drill?
Yeah. And so I realized that I exhibit satisficing style behaviors in almost everything that I do. But there was so in the book, then he also talks about how maximizing actually has a tendency to produce depression and envy and regret. Because
have you ever been out to dinner with someone who has entree envy?
Oh, that happens in
Yes.
our family a lot.
Yeah.
this is a maximizing behavior, because the problem is if you want something that's good enough, you're gonna get it because that's your standards. You're like, I need food.
This is food.
This is food. Nailed it, right? But if you want the best food, then you can never know whether you got it.
Well, maybe.
What you think, Ma?
So moving from Baltimore to here, every time I go out to dinner, I'm like, oh, this could have been better. So before I could just pick something on the menu and be like, this is great. I know it's going to be good. Now I'm like, okay,
you have to know what to get.
I'm just going to gamble here and hope this is good. And it's usually like medium most of the time. So I think sometimes when you know something can be good and then you just pick something so you can just get the food and then you're just upset.
But it depends on your standards, right? So, because you may not,
So
it
maybe
might
my
be.
standards are too high.
Well, and this is something that he talks about in the book is the idea that being exposed to a lot of choices actually creates maximizing behaviors. So I grew up in the Midwest where you eat a meat piece. You're like, it is lunchtime. Break out the meat piece, and then you just take a big fucking cleaver,
you chop off a meat piece,
whack a chunk off, you throw it onto a pan, and you're like, it's warm enough. Meat time.
It's still red in the middle. That's perfect.
Everybody eats.
It's edible.
And so I never understood so my wife comes from India and everything's just like spices and like flavors. Like everything is like, there's like gravies and curries and, everything has to have this just bombastic sort of in your face flavor to it. And she comes here and she comes to eat with my family or something when we get together. And everybody's
Steak
like, all right,
potatoes.
gather around the meat piece. And she's like, what?
I had a very similar experience.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Because my family's from Trinidad, hailing from India, and then my other side of the family's from Louisiana. So it's pure flavor all the time, deliciousness. I come to a Midwest Thanksgiving and I'm like, where's the salt?
And people are like,
Please,
salt?
just give me. I would have taken just salt and been a little happier instead I was like poking things with a fork. I'm like, it looks pretty, but I can't eat
Damn,
it.
is it black?
See, the salt overpowers the meat flavor. Don't even put a sprinkle on there. So
Get away
this
from
is
me.
this is kind of the idea, and it is the case now that because you've seen all these possibilities of how good food can be, you no longer can use the good enough principle on food, because if your standard is it food and is it in my mouth? Check those two boxes. I am good to go. Right. Now you always have to be thinking, what else? What could this have been? You know?
I could just start keeping hot sauce in my purse.
That's the way to do it. Hot sauce in my bag.
Yeah. And I was also thinking maybe it's the case that, because I think in relationships, I think people tend to come at different decisions from these two angles. And it often creates these hilarious kinds of dichotomies. So Sam, you're talking about washing dishes.
So I'm talking about washing dishes a lot of the podcast, I feel like, but here's another one. So as far as the difference, like in this particular arena, if I wash a dish by hand and I know that I have knowingly rubbed the sponge across the whole surface of the thing, and then I look at it and I'm like, looks good, because I can't see anything on it at that exact moment. Then I put it away. And when I get it out later, if I see something on it, I'm like, that's fine, because I rubbed this with a sponge.
I mean, that's some clean food dirt.
So, that's where my standard is, right? Because my whole goal is to rub the dish and then move on with my life. So comically,
you don't want the cleanest dish. You just want a vaguely clean dish.
I want it to not have food in it. And the thing is, like, they're not disgusting by any stretch. It's just every so often you'll see like a smudge or something, right? The usual sort of dish.
Is
crap.
it like food smudge or is it like a water stain?
No, it's like either a water stain or whatever.
It's
else.
just an ambiguous smudge.
when I dry my glasses, for example, I tend to just dry them sitting there straight up, which of course you're not supposed to do because the water can't drain out.
Yeah,
so then you get
turn
smudges, that sort of thing.
And you get watermarks
But I'm like,
everywhere.
I don't care. I don't care about watermarks. It's water. Who gives a shit? I'm going to drink water out of this. I'm going to eat out of it later. It's fine. That's not a problem. And so the comical thing, though, is in a relationship, if you have a satisficer, which would be myself when it comes to dishes, coming at it versus someone who's a maximizer, now you gotta negotiate about
Well, the problem
to
is
what degree
the satisficer.
do these dishes need to be done.
The satisficer can never rise to the standards of the maximizer. Right?
I can't relate, because basically what it is, if I'm looking at a dish and I'm like, this is good enough, the truly to me on a deep level, I'm like, this is fine. And I've gotten what I need out of this washing experience.
Yeah. And if somebody were to say that you need to spend more time washing that dish, now it feels like they're just telling you to waste your time for no reason.
Because I'm like, I don't understand.
I did it. I checked the dish boxes.
The box has been checked. The dish is basically clean.
This dish has been touched by a sponge. I don't see what the problem.
But so I think it's one of those things that in a relationship, if that's the combo, then you got to figure out, what the sort of dimensions are. So now the rules are, if I do dishes, I have to put them in the dishwasher.
That way you have a third party.
That's taking care of the problem 100%. Because if the dishwasher doesn't clean things, which it frequently does not.
Well,
by the way,
because the dishwasher is a satisficer. The dishwasher
I
says,
sprayed these things super hot.
Did I spray dishes? Yep.
Did I get all the nooks and crannies? Whatever.
The dishwasher isn't going to evaluate the effectiveness of its spraying.
And then when it comes out, the weird thing is when it comes out of the dishwasher and it's kind of dirty, the response is, well, it's okay. I mean, dishwasher did what it could. I'm like, where's the mercy for me?
Because you could try harder, Sam.
So could that goddamn dishwasher.
We have the same problem at home, and we solved it, whereas Jonathan cleans all of the stemware. So anytime I want a glass of wine, if he pours it, it's like an extra 10 minutes because he has to check all the glasses for water spots. And if there's water spots, then he has to steam some water, and then he has to get a special microfiber cloth, and then he has to polish the glass before I can have a glass of wine.
And you're like, where's my drink?
And all I want is a drink.
That's
so now
amazing.
he just takes care of the stemware, and then I just wait 10 minutes for glasses of
Well, I
wine.
guess part of the thing is you figure out where everybody's maximizing or satisfying behaviors lie, and then when they crop up in unexpected places, I think it's also where you can occasionally have like an eruption of an argument happen because you're like, this wasn't supposed to be difficult. You know?
I do believe that actually this is probably the source of at least like half of relationship fights is
agreed.
somebody has a certain standard and the other person is using the good enough
All
principle.
right, let me talk about my grocery shopping method because I think this is also a good one between me and my wife. Because I walk in, I'm like, I need green beans. I just walk over to the pile of
There are
green
green beans.
I just grab them with a handful, shove it in a bag, and move on. Okay, so I can do in and out of the grocery store in like 15 minutes. All the groceries.
Oh no.
My wife is like a lioness hunting, and so she goes in there and she will comb through the beans and pick the best one
Individually over the course of 3 days.
But the first time we went to the grocery store
Does
together,
she have one of those little jeweler sort of like little one
Just like a
eye?
little monocle.
this thing was the first time we went to the grocery store together. I was so confused, and I was like, and it was very endearing at the time, right? Because you're still like this early point of dating. We're like cooking a meal together, and I was like, wow, she really cares about getting green beans.
Like that's cute. She takes 48 hours.
But you
to buy
know
a green
what?
bean.
Yeah, by the 30th time you go to the grocery store, not so cute anymore. Like, get the damn beans and let's go. So it's been, you gotta find those points and then figure out how to handle it. So now I'm just like, I'll go get. You just tell me the things to go get, and I will just go get those, and I'll get all the rest of the groceries by the time you finish the produce, because that's just how this is gonna work.
Yeah.
you know?
Or you go get groceries individually, right? So either she would
works
go
too,
or
yeah.
you would go, but you can't go together because now you're gonna have
Right.
You know,
There's gonna be some
problems.
friction.
Yeah, we've taken the go alone approach.
Yeah. Sometimes you can't make it work. Hey, whatever.
Well, but this is also why I've never understood why people enjoy shopping, and I've also never quite got why they don't get that I don't enjoy shopping. Right? And it's because as a person with strong satisficing tendencies, I have a thing that I need that's supposed to serve a purpose, and literally the moment I see that thing, my visit to the mall is done, right? And so I don't care about spending an extra hour to find a bargain or finding a better version of that thing. I got what I needed and I'm gone, right? So I've never been able to enjoy shopping, but now I know
actually,
why.
it makes me tired. Like I get tired from if I go in to look at a bunch of different options. Like shoe shopping is an easy example because I do this like maybe once a year to go get a pair of shoes, and I'm looking at all the various things, the various changes and slight changes in the style or the shoe wear or whatever else. And at some point, I'm just like, I need a sneaker that I don't have to tie. Those are now my requirements, and then I just get it. And
That cuts down the number of things you have to look at.
Yeah, exactly.
Quite a lot.
So use these filters.
Yeah, this is I don't know. It's a really interesting way of kind of dividing the world. And I think it explains a lot in terms of people not understanding. But I think having names for these things really helps to know why they're happening.
Right, because you can just say, oh, you're maximizing, and I just don't care.
Right.
So just pick something. So
Now this is your problem.
Yeah, if you're the one who cares, you got to do it.
I think it's a good rule. It's like the more people here than their rule, right? If you got like 5 people in one place, another group has 2 people, and they're like, where should we go? And you go, you come here because
there are more people
here, and moving 2 people is easier than moving 5 people, right? Similar, if somebody is a maximizer and somebody's a satisficer, then if the maximizer has the high standards, that's now their problem.
Sure.
right? Like if they want the
Or
dish to
their
be
opportunity, Seth, depending on how you look
right.
at it.
Right.
But if they want that perfect deal, if they want that dish cleaned perfectly or whatever it is, they shouldn't be dragging somebody else who doesn't care along for this ridiculous ride, right?
Well, they probably have really good genes, though.
They probably do look really good.
But
and
you
their
know
stuff is
what?
very clean.
Yes.
They don't have the best genes yet. Maybe someday they'll get that perfect pair of jeans. Meanwhile, I got jeans. All right.
Good.
Let's get on to some questions. These questions come from podcast.bscotch.net. So if you'd like to get your question on a future podcast, hop on over there and slap it in the text box. All right. First question comes from -5 charisma. Hi, guys.
Hey.
There's more to it, though.
Hey.
So now that the store is open, how does it feel to be fashion models?
How does it feel?
I don't know. It feels,
It feels a little bit more sort of luxurious, I think.
no one's recognized me in the grocery store yet. So,
Yeah, we haven't hit that level.
yeah. I feel like I'm just like a normal person.
Well, you probably got to wear the Crashlands shirt into the grocery
So they
store.
know, and my sunglasses.
Yeah, I don't know if you've experienced that thing where you know somebody and then you see them in a different context and you totally don't recognize them whatsoever.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Happens often, actually.
You always wear a blue shirt, and I didn't know that you looked like that with a green shirt on. Whatever.
Well, the funny part about those is that because Tifa arranged the photo shoot stuff, and then we all went around taking pictures, and it was very amusing because, of course, everybody has a different take on photos, and Seth's actually satisficer when it comes to photography.
Has
as
a
well.
photo been taken? Yep. Time to move on with my day.
So, well, we had to have a chat about it because it was like you got to approach this and just enjoy the experience of being photographed as opposed to trying to check off the box of getting a photo. Because if you do that versus the other one, you're just going to have a bad time the whole time. And we need you to look like a beautiful, happy model while you're wearing this T-shirt, which I think helped a bunch in terms of your
Yeah.
approach that day.
Tifa was a very good art director, making
Yeah.
sure everyone was happy and smiling, looking good,
Yeah,
riding
we-
tree
Yeah,
horses.
she kept throwing Cadbury chocolates at my face, which
yeah.
actually that was kind of
That's how you got
that
there.
was how I made it through.
That was actually really funny because there's a picture that I was hanging from a tree outside, and Tifa took it and turned it on its side, and so it looks like, and no one mentioned it at all, but it looks like I'm riding a tree
horse.
and then in our studio feed, Tifa had done up a bunch of the photos with basically like little cartoon extras on them, and one of them made its way to the Discord last week, which people have been enjoying quite a bit. But she actually drew a full horse on that thing, and like me with this mane of like a knight,
like a He-Man.
yeah. You have a sword.
So there's all sorts of goofy stuff in there, but yeah, I think it's been interesting seeing that. So like all of our people are photogenic, as it turns out, or Tifa's just really good at Photoshop. One of the two.
I'm going to go with B.
Probably B. And at one point she took Adam's face because Adam tends to not smile, literally, ever in photos. And she was working on the team photograph and like rebuilt Adam's face in Photoshop and like curved up his mouth and made his eyes kind of big to make him look like he was smiling. But it was one of the creepiest things I think any of us have ever
Like a
seen.
villain.
Yeah. It's like a super villain. So we had to
It
bring that
was.
down.
I think part of it was the eye bulge
Yeah.
combined with the corner smile.
It
Yeah.
was too much.
It was
Also,
like a serial killer.
Speaking of Adam, also in the news is Adam is getting his
Probably
his
right
surgery
now.
today.
Yeah.
Probably
As we
right
speak.
right now.
His stomach is being wrapped around his esophagus.
Yeah. So
Weird.
of course we wish him well. He'll be fine.
Yep.
He's in very good hands. So namely our dad actually is overseeing the surgery.
He's in great hands.
So that's pretty good. All right, next question comes from Dark Silver Hawk. I don't know what color dark silver is. Is that
It's like a pewter.
pewter hawk?
Like
That doesn't sound as
or like
cool.
a gunmetal gray.
Gunmetal hawk.
Gunmetal hawk.
Dang.
That is dope.
It's almost 3 random words, but not quite, you know?
Yeah.
Gunmetal hawk.
Yeah.
Good
So
password.
Gunmetal Hawk says, "Can I get a favorite recipe from the Bscotch team?" So we already talked about mine.
What's your recipe?
A
Jeans?
a meat
Meat.
piece
Oh, meat piece.
brought to a certain level of warmth.
So that's reminded. They sell rotisserie chickens at the grocery store like a block away from the studio. And Seth's been just buying a whole chicken and eating it in one.
I'm actually kind of jealous of that because I wish I could just eat bland chicken.
It's actually herb chicken. I think there's an herb on it.
I think it's got subtle notes.
I've tasted it and I'm like,
It's just chicken.
it's just chicken.
Yeah.
It certainly is.
Satisfies the meat piece requirement.
Right, exactly. He gets to just eat the meat, and I'm like, I need something more.
I have 3 recipes. One's this turkey burger. They're basically like most of them are they're shades of the same thing. So the turkey burger, you take like 3 pounds of turkey, and so everything I do is in bulk because I don't want to cook multiple times a week. I don't got time for that. So Sundays,
you don't want to have to wash. You don't have to wash the dishes after
absolutely
cooking.
not. So you take these hamburgers,
a whole new can of
put them
worms.
into a Tupperware, and then when I get here, I just eat them out of my Tupperware, so I'm gonna have to wash your dishes, you know. But yeah, so you take 3 pounds of turkey, and then you take I believe the term is a fuck ton of turmeric and curry powder. And
It's good that they sell it. They sell turmeric by the fuck ton.
they do. It's an empirical measurement. Yeah. But yeah, so you take the turmeric and the chili powder, and then kind of whatever else you want. So salt, pepper, the usual. Throw it all in there, and you mix up the meat. And then while this is happening, while you're like getting your hands disgusting by squooshing this turkey meat, then you take onions and garlic and you throw them in a pan. And this is very important because you just cut them up and you throw them in the pan and you just leave them there.
Do you put heat on it, or you just put them in the pan?
So you do what's called sweating.
Uh-huh.
Which I didn't know this was a thing. But apparently you could sweat onions and garlic. And so basically what you do is you cook them on you basically just cook it on really low heat for a while. So I did it for like 15 minutes or so while I'm getting everything else ready. And then what they do is they just taste delicious, and all of their juices come out. And then you take all that and you throw it in the turkey meat, mix it all in, and then ball it up and then cook. Sear the burgers first for like a minute. So they're just basically like a little bit of char on each side. And then throw them in the oven at like 400 degrees for 20 minutes. And then you have a bunch of delicious burgers.
Man, that's some Gordon Ramsay level Turkbergs.
They're really good Turkbergs.
Turkbergs.
I highly recommend them. And they get, depending on how much spice you put in them, you can make them really, really intense, or just don't, you know.
Or not intense.
But they're great with both ketchup and hummus, which is, I think, an excellent difference.
That's a testament. Mm-hmm. That's a testament to those Turkbergs.
Yeah. What you got, Mo?
My favorite recipe is probably this dip that came out of the Williams and Sonoma Entertaining Cookbook.
Hey, okay.
It's a crab dip, so it's not Seth friendly because there's a ton of dairy in it. It's like cream cheese and cheddar, Worcester. What else is in there?
Is it only dairy?
Yeah, it's pretty much just, it's
is
a
there
lot.
Crab?
There is crab. There's lump crab meat.
Okay, gotcha.
So it's super tasty.
Mm-hmm.
Lump crab
Wait,
meat.
is that a kind of crab? Lump
It's like
crab?
a super fat crab.
Lump-
Yeah,
lump
it's
crab?
like a fat little crab you get, and it's like lumpy.
Yeah, it's just a hugely lumpy thing.
Yeah.
You suck out the lumps, and the lumps is
And
what
you
the
put
meat
the crab
is.
back, actually, which is nice. The crab
Yeah.
gets to live.
It's a catch and release lump sucking program for the crabs.
Yeah, it's big on the East Coast.
Cool. That's weird, but I like it.
You take the lump crab and all of your cheeses and spices and put it in a lovely baking dish, because also presentation is key with dips.
It is key.
It is key.
You don't want to just hand someone like a shitty Tupperware with water stains on it. You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
no one's going to want that.
No one's going to want
It's got to be a pristine, beautiful ceramic casserole dish that you put the lump crab and the cheese and a little bit more cheese and a fuck ton of Old
There
Bay.
you go. Yeah.
You need the Old Bay. The Old Bay.
Old Bay? What's that?
Oh, that's
Is that a
right.
spice?
You don't know.
Wait, do you know what Laurie's is? Do you have?
Yeah.
Okay, you know what that is. Well,
Yes.
what's Old Bay?
Old Bay is,
Also, how you spell it? Is it BAE or is it?
I
BAY?
wish. It's
OL apostrophe.
Old Bay.
B-A.
Old Bay.
Old Bay is huge in Maryland because they love crabs. Because what's Maryland known for? Crab cakes and football.
Yeah.
So Old Bay is huge, but you put that in the dip because you need Old Bay seasoning on seafood. It's delicious.
What's like the combo?
It's like Laurie's, but not as salty. So Old Bay is like more powdery, and you put that in it, so it blends well. Whereas Laurie's has like more salt in it. And you put it in the oven, and then you take it out. You put a little bit more cheese on top. Put it back in the oven.
Take it out again. Put more cheese on it. Put it back in. Take it out.
Sprinkle some-
Cheese with it. Put it back in. Take it out.
Put cheese
to
under it,
sprinkle
just to
a little
switch it
dried
up.
parsley on top, for color, and then a little bit more Old Bay, and then you present it with either toast points.
What's a toast
A
point?
toast point is a baguette that you slice on a diagonal
Okay.
and then toast for maybe 5
Do you
minutes.
slice it on a diagonal just like once? So it's just like a
Just a half a baguette.
The little mini guys.
Depending on how extreme your diagonal is, you end up with sort of like a baguette blade.
Yes, more like
Sounds
little
fantastic.
little toast points, and then you arrange them around your beautiful casserole dish. Then you present it to your guest.
You know what you can do for garnish? You take that lump crab, put that lump crab in the middle of it, just kind of sitting in the dip, kind of flailing around. That way, people know that
you take your diagonal baguette slice,
and you got to fight that crab to get the dip. It makes it way more satisfying because you really have to earn that dip. You know.
Wait, have you ever cooked blue crabs before?
No.
So you actually do get them live, and you do fight them sometimes because they'll come out of the sink or the bag that you take them out of, or they'll like fight to get out of the pot of boiling water. They will try to come out. So yes, you do fight the crabs occasionally.
Is there a reason? Like, what happens if you kill it first and then boil it?
The problem is they don't have a centralized nervous system. It's like lobsters. Like their nervous system is actually distributed throughout their body. It's the question of like, how do you kill it?
Oh, I forgot they're aliens.
Yeah, they're basically fucking aliens.
They're
like
spider aliens.
It's not like a goat where you can be like, I'm going to shoot it in the face and that'll kill it. Right? Like that's what you do.
I think that's how you prepare a goat.
That's basically how you do it.
Yeah.
Versus with one of those things, it's like, it's like kind of just like the same inside everywhere. Really weird.
That is weird.
Kind of upsetting. I mean, I think they do have like
why do we eat these
They do have more of a brain
tasty.
thing, but like their nervous system is much more distributed.
Isn't that true of octopi as well? They have a distributed nervous system.
It goes, in
their
each
tentacles.
Each of their tentacles has some.
Never killed and eaten one. Just ordered them already cooked.
They're apparently like illegal to kill in some places because they're recognized as a more sentient species. Like
they're
dolphins.
extremely intelligent.
They're extremely intelligent, but also extremely antisocial. They're like very smart, but they will murder each other basically on sight, which is fantastic.
Yeah, and
because as soon as they stop doing that, we're doomed. Because I mean, what are you going to do against 8 arms?
I remember seeing a video clip where somebody to show how smart octopus is. They took like a jar, like a peanut butter jar, and has a little octopus, put it in the jar, and then screwed the lid on. And the octopus watched them. And then it stuck its suckers on the bottom of the lid and unscrewed the lid and then got back out again.
They're apparently really, really hard to have as pets because they just escape all the time.
They actually leave their tanks.
Yeah.
They get out and then they kind of sucker their way across the floor trying to find somewhere else to go.
But then they'll get back in the tank before you get home.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. If you want to hear a crazy, have we talked about, I feel like we've talked about octopi before. But yeah, there's a crazy octopus story where there was a research lab and they had an octopus tank and then they had a fish tank on the other side of the lab. And the fish kept disappearing.
But the octopus was always in its tank. So you're like, what is happening?
Yeah. So like is somebody stealing the fish or what? So they put a security camera in there and the octopus was unlatching its tank, opening up the top, climbing out, slurping across the floor, getting in the fish tank, eating the fish, going back, closing the fish tank, latching it, going back to its tank, close its own tank, and then latch its own tank. And then it was just like, what? I don't know.
I don't know what happened. It's crazy.
What did you
expect?
This is what I do.
Yeah.
So it's just getting snacks.
I'm an octopus.
Yeah. All right. Next question comes from Rampandapus, who says, have you ever learned something important about yourself while playing a video game? Care to share an example? So we can't just say yes and then move on. We have
So here's one for me, was that it was more about how I think you can see people from playing video games with them, and also the sort of person that I tend to be in that scenario. So the example is I played a game called Super Mario for the Wii, which I still think is one of the best co-op Super Mario games that's ever existed, if not one of the best co-op games, period.
It reveals
many things because all you do is you accidentally kill each other all the time.
It's just a regular Mario game.
Right.
Except that you can collide with your friends.
Correct.
So you can't like run through each other.
So if, for example, if Monique and I are playing and we both try to jump over a gap at the same time, and Monique's slightly lower than I am because she held the button slightly less long, and if I land on her head, then I will fire her down into the gap and she will die. At which point I will go sailing off into happiness. And
so you can use your teammates' tragedy
as a springboard for
success.
So
sounds about normal.
Yeah, it's about normal. But the thing is, it's always accidental, right? Because your whole goal is to, as a unit, get to the end of the levels. And there's just a lot of accidental murder along the way, which...
Can't you pick each other up and throw each other?
You can pick each other up and throw each other.
So that's more deliberate murder.
That can be. Or very helpful, depending on the scenario. So the interesting thing about it was, I think... I had this friend of mine who I've been hanging out with for, I think, probably like 6 months or so. And I liked the guy just fine, but I had him over one day. I was like, oh, come play this game with me. It's super fun. And he got so angry. Like it was so clearly accidental murder just across the board. And he got so angry with me for accidentally killing him many, many times that I think I couldn't quite, it sort of like broke the relationship for me. Cause I was like, well, I was just like, how are you getting mad?
It's just a game
right now. And not only is it just a game, but like,
it's on accident.
It's on accident. I don't understand what there is to be mad about. And so that was a big one for me, was actually that you can.
It turns out you can only have fun with this person under very particular circumstances,
right, in which nothing potentially bad could happen to them on accident. Like, God forbid you do something on accident to make them act.
Right. I think it reveals on the question of like, if something non-game related had happened where you had accidentally done something, what would the reaction be?
Right.
Probably not great.
Like you did that on purpose, blah, blah, blah. Right. So that was been an interesting one for me. And then, as far as when we bring people into the studio, I mean, Mo played Gang Beasts with us.
That was hilarious.
Which was hilarious, right? And that's actually a similar game where like it's mainly just a lot of button mashing and then hilarious stuff ensues. You're actually trying to murder each other though in that particular case. But it's just a super goofy physics game. And the reason we sat down with any applicant to play a game is to see like, are they nice?
Yeah.
When you're accidentally fighting each other or making mistakes.
Throw them in front of a bus.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. What's this person's reaction when I throw them in front of a bus? Are they cool with it? Or?
Yeah.
Is it going to be all right?
It's one of those things you can't really do, in the real world.
Yeah.
You got to simulate it.
Yeah.
So.
What about you, Seth? Did you learn anything about yourself?
I've learned all kinds of things about myself. One is that I hate rules.
It's weird that you play games then, because it's just what it is.
Well, I hate rules imposed by sort of like a social structure, if that makes sense. Because I played MMOs and stuff, and I never really enjoyed being involved in somebody else's organization because I was always like, why are we doing things like this? And they'd be like, shut up. And then and that was kind of it. Like this happened to me. This is what happened to me in school and stuff as well. But it became really apparent in playing online games because you can just bounce around from group to group. And I just was perpetually dissatisfied with how people were running things. And eventually I just started running my own groups, which then I learned that I kind of had a knack for like putting together kind of organizational structures and those kinds of things. So I learned that when I was like 17 or 18. Which then is a very disappointing thing to know about yourself at that age because you're still 18 and nobody outside of a video game context gives a shit.
No one will let you do anything.
Yeah. And I'm like, okay, so as an 18-year-old, I can run an organization of 500 people and coordinate that and inspire them to do things for no pay at all. Like I'm just like, let's just go have fun and, put together events and stuff. Right. And I maintained that organization for 6 months. And it was constantly growing. I put together like recruitment videos and all kinds of crazy stuff. And outside of this game, I couldn't even get a job at like a Starbucks. So, like not even like running a Starbucks, but like pouring a cup of coffee.
Is it possible on a resume to put like I ran a 500 person WoW guild? Like, is that even a?
I mean, if somebody put that, I'd be like,
yeah.
I mean, I feel like that's kind of a big thing.
That's interesting. Yeah.
So, and that was kind of, there's this problematic dichotomy that then appeared where I'm just this like the ordinary college student doing okay and nobody will give me any responsibility and nobody cares about what I have to say. And then I go into this video game world and I can do basically whatever I want. Right. So that's kind of that was weird.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But you, Mo, you got anything?
Yeah. So I just played WoW with Seth like 3 weeks ago. The time warp. It could have been yesterday for all I know. And every time I've tried to play a game at home by myself, I just can't do it. Either Jonathan has to be around to play with me or I have to play with someone in the studio. And I've just learned that when it comes to gaming, I need to be in a social group setting. I don't know why I can't play games alone. It just won't happen. Like I'll sit down and I'll start it and I'm like, this seems lonely. And then, and then
pass.
I'm like, pass. I'm like, I feel like I just like miss people more when I'm playing games. I don't know why I miss everyone. I'm just like, I just want someone to talk to.
You're very extroverted in your,
Am I gaming?
I think being alone and playing a game is it's like reading a book or like, it's like a very solitary, introverted kind of
private
behavior to do. Right. But you're also, you're a partier. You like to go to concerts and you do all this stuff and you become energized by being around people. So I think it makes sense.
Yeah.
That that sort of tendency would also carry over into your gaming, right?
So like when we would like have the rage hours and play games, that was a lot of fun. So I probably would enjoy like a gaming party. So I'm like, oh, this is fun. Let's all game together and, you know, party at the same time.
Social experience.
Yeah, it needs to be a social thing for me. By myself, I just would rather like take a nap or something. Since I'm going to be by myself, I should just sleep.
Yeah.
Because it also means I'm by myself, and that means Baby Scotch is not around, so I should definitely be sleeping.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
Take advantage.
Yeah, you have a different set of priorities.
Right.
So, all right. So I think we have time for one more question. Woland77 says, why did you decide to become jacked instead of fast or flexible or a rock climber or a juggler?
I mean, who says we're not all of those things already?
You know me.
I think. So here's the thing. Olympic gymnasts are pretty jacked.
Yeah.
They're extremely
They're
jacked.
also very flexible, and they could probably climb rocks.
And they're quite fast.
And they're pretty
They're
quick.
fast.
Yeah.
I'm pretty quick. I can do some decent sprints.
This is actually interesting because I just on Friday I was like, why am I going to the gym? Because I sort of ran out of things to do at this point. As far as like my goals have been met a few times. Like I've done the same thing a few times, which is like put on some muscles or like bench press this or just do that, whatever the bar is.
Yeah, because the fun is in the journey getting to that. And then once you're there, you're like,
What
oh,
not?
Fuck.
Yeah. So and like maintenance as an activity has just always been the least interesting.
You got to
thing
work
to me.
towards something.
So actually on Friday I decided, speaking of this question, that I was going to just do basically some flexibility stuff because I can't touch my toes.
Really?
I've never actually had an injury from anything, but I'm extremely not flexible, like to a ridiculous degree. And I was like, I feel like maybe it would be a good thing to do and just maybe make my body feel good. So I've
You
been
do yoga?
Yoga?
No, I found like a 15-minute stretch routine. I just do it every morning. That's
Is it working?
Yeah.
It's only been like 3 days.
I feel good. So yeah, I guess. But it's a nice thing because like my whole goal is to be able to just touch my toes. That's the first one. And then beyond that is going to be
Then you can touch other people's toes. You can touch elephant's toes.
Anything, really.
Any kind of toe.
All of the toes.
But I was thinking, like, how fun would it be to be like, I'm gonna figure out how to do the splits. Like, I know very few people who could do the splits. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But didn't you cheer?
Yeah, but I threw people. It wasn't like I wasn't doing gymnastics. I was hurling bodies.
Yeah. Yeah. What'll happen with college cheerleading is guys will sign up and they're like, well, what can you do? And they're like, nothing. Mm-hmm. And then they go, well, we got all these girls you can throw. And then so that's your job.
your job now,
You
yeah.
throw people around. So no splits, no backflips.
But yeah, I recently changed my goal here. But the reason to get strong instead of say fast or whatever else, I think it was just like a random thing. And I have done fastness before. I've gotten fast.
Yep.
I did that once.
I was a swimmer, so I did swimming good for a while. But I think it's also the case that for me, lifting is a thing that I can do solo.
Right.
And there's a lot of variety in it, right? So I could go run, but when you run, it's one thing.
Right.
You go, you run. You do that for like 30 minutes and then you go home and you just did one thing, right? With lifting, you can switch it up day by day. You hit different things. You can track different numbers and try different approaches and stuff. And there's just a lot of variety in what you're doing day by day.
I think if you're the sort of person who really wants to feel a lot of growth, I think lifting's a good thing because there's so many buckets.
There's so many numbers to measure.
Right. It's like one day you're like, oh, I didn't do so well on these exercises today, but for some reason,
But my calves are just
on fire. And so it's sort of like playing a really diverse video game. It has a bunch of different systems in it, right? Because you're always sort of making a bit of progress.
With lifting, you've got like 50 different achievements that you can
versus
work
if you're
toward.
running, you're like, that wasn't fast.
Did I run faster? No. Fuck.
So,
Maybe tomorrow.
Lifting, I like to combine lifting and being fast. So like Friday I went to spin, and then every time I'm in spin I try to just be able to make it more like harder to like turn up the gears. So there's that. So your legs get stronger, but then you also get faster because you're pretty much sprinting uphill.
All the
and
time.
then afterwards I was like, well, I want to do some squats, but I want to challenge myself. So I did the Bosu ball, like the half one. So you do squats on half of a Bosu ball, so you're balancing yourself.
Oh God.
You're squatting your body weight. And it's kind of nice.
That's
so you're
rad.
strong and fast and flexible.
Yeah.
And you have balance.
And you have balance, which is important for
Dang,
your
Mo,
core.
that's good.
Yeah.
Kicking it up.
Yeah,
You ever see those kung fu movies where there's like that one challenger who just can't be knocked over?
Can't be moved.
They do that crazy stance.
He's
and
an
like,
iron horse. I think is what it is.
No matter what, like they just can't be. They just don't budge. Is that you're working toward?
Yeah,
like,
I'm just going towards
being
that.
Being like a tank.
Plus, lifting just makes you feel better. Like you just throw things, just push things.
The whole thing is like if you can carry all your groceries into the house
In one arm.
with one arm.
And you got your key in the other hand.
Yep, that's why. That's why I lift. That's the only reason why.
You gotta be able to do it.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, I think that's all the time we have for this week. So we'd like to thank Monique for putting this episode together
You're welcome.
and being on the episode this time around. And our producer, Fat Bard, for making us sound good, as well as the Butterscotch dev team, Andy, Tifa, and Sher, for continuing to build stuff while we're in here doing the podcast. Special thanks to our community moderators who keep our Discord and forums running. If you'd like to get more involved in the Butterscotch community, you can hop into our Discord, which is at bit.ly/bsdiscord. Come say hi. We're in there. We're lurking, doing stuff. I think we were at like 180 people in there over the weekend.
Quite a few, yeah. Everyone's hanging
It's getting
out.
crazy. We got a bunch of different channels now. We got like a game dev channel. We got a channel for National Novel Writing Month, which I think most of the studio is doing. So now a bunch of our Discord people are doing it as well, which is fantastic. So it's really just like it's just a good bunch of folks who are all just really excited about stuff.
Yeah, come hang out with us.
Yeah. So
Join the party.
hop in there. That's bit.ly/bsdiscord. We also have a mailbox. So if you'd like to send us candy or a perfume scented letter, whatever's sort of
Or
your
cologne
thing.
scented letter.
Cologne.
That'd be nice too.
Smell, scent.
Just,
Not musky, though.
Yeah, not that.
depends on the musk. I don't know. As long as it could be a good musk. Send us an Elon Musk. Take some
There we go.
take us some of that.
Take one of those.
That's over at mailbox.bscotch.net. Also, we depend on word of mouth and good reviews to get new listeners. So if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, help us out by going to bit.ly/CWBApple and give us a 5-star review. It'll help us spread the word, and we'd appreciate it a lot. So thank you all for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.